Welcome back, everyone. We got another good Toldinstone video prepared. This is bars and restaurants in ancient Rome, given, that is the place where you go and socialize, I think. So if we get dropped off in ancient Rome, where are we going to go? That is the clue. No, that is not the clue. That is the question. That is the question. Let's jump right in and see what we got in store. Thank you for being here today. Let go. Go sub to Toldinstone. Great channel. Great channel.
There were no fancy restaurants in ancient Rome. Wealthy Romans ate at home, attended by regiments of cooks and servers. The poor, by contrast, lived in apartments that usually lacked kitchens, fireplaces, or any other facilities for preparing meals.
Of course, what we would call that are slums. And I think that's actually historically accurate to call it that as well.
If they wanted hot food, they usually had to get it from a local bar. Just as the English words bar, tavern, and pub have similar meanings but slightly different connotations, the Latin
I do not know the bottom right, but I do know all the other references.
terms taberna, popina, caupona, and thermopolium seem to have been almost, but not quite, synonymous. Some of these establishments only served food, others only wine. Some had seats for customers, others only service counters. Some doubled as hotels, brothels, or both. Without losing sight of those distinctions.
So basically, saloons. These were saloons. I know that's a Western Americanized term, but it seems like these are saloons.
I'll use taberna as a generic term for the places where most Romans drank their wine and ate hot meals. The majority of what we know about Roman bars comes from the excavations at Ostia, Herculaneum, and, above all, Pompeii. Pompeii had more than 160 tabernae, roughly one for every 60 inhabitants. Almost all of Pompeii's tabernae were open to the street, with heavy wooden shutters that could be closed at night. Inside was a waist-high service counter, usually L or U-shaped. For greater visibility, the front of the counter—
That is crazy that their service counters look no different to now. You go to like a restaurant or a bar or somewhere. It's so obviously it's practical, but it's crazy to think that some things just never change.
Was often veneered with marble or coated with stucco. The counter of Pompeii's most recently excavated bar was painted with scenes ranging from a Nereid riding a seahorse to a fierce-looking guard dog. The counter was sometimes complemented by the Roman equivalent of a pub sign, painted on a wall near the entrance.
That's cool.
Next to the caupona of Euxinus in Pompeii, for example, was a fresco of a phoenix, apparently the name of the bar, with the caption, "The Phoenix is happy, and you can be too." Equally eye-catching, at least to modern observers, were the elaborate lamps and wind chimes hung over the counter, which often featured an apotropaic phallus or two. Although some Roman bars only served food to go, most had a seating area for customers who wanted to eat and drink on the premises. Usually, this was a small room adjacent to the service counter, provided with wooden stools and tables. A few bars had private rooms and gardens. At the Praedia of Julia Felix in Pompeii, for example, patrons could recline on masonry couches that imitated those in the triclinia of elite houses. The caupona of Euxinus had a private vineyard, complete with shady alcoves that were probably reserved for guests. Wine came to tabernae in delivery carts wobbling with wineskins. It was stored in amphorae, which were lined along walls and stacked on racks. Servers poured wine—
That is really good looking. That is really looking good right there.
—into pitchers or cups, ideally made of bronze or glass, but often simple pottery. This wine was usually cheap, local, and weak.
Is that if anyone knows, is that real? Is that real right there? Is that like a recreation? That quality in that, the condition it's in is just amazing.
Bartenders were routinely accused of adding water to save money. Some establishments, however, served, or claimed to serve, more expensive vintages. A sign outside a Pompeian bar advertised the famous Falernian variety, available for 4 times the cost of ordinary wine. At another bar in Pompeii, amphorae containing wines from every part of the empire were stacked around the bar, ready to be served to discerning patrons. Earthenware containers, dolia, filled with food were often embedded in the service counter. Although it used to be theorized that they held soups and stews, this seems unlikely, since few containers were waterproofed with pitch. At Herculaneum, vestiges of carbonized grain, chickpeas, and beans were discovered in dolia. Analysis of the most recently excavated Pompeii bar found duck, fish, goat, and pig bones in a single container, along with a few snail shells. Unless these were the remains of an extremely unorthodox dish.
Seems like a gumbo or crazy.
They should probably be identified as scraps, tossed aside by the bar staff or customers.
Yeah.
Another dolium in the same bar contained fava beans, which the Romans sometimes used to purify spoiled wines. A fresco in Pompeii shows sausages, cheeses, and dried fruit hanging from the rafters. Cooked foods were also on the menu. A Roman poet mentions pike being grilled outside a taberna. Heated or otherwise, the average quality of bar food does not seem to have been high. One poem describes it as greasy. Another alludes casually to the cockroaches that flourished around service counters.
I love how there's satire here of Herodotus. Like, you guys catch that? Herodotus is up there at the top right. Oh, yeah, that's funny.
Insalubrious though they may have been, Rome's bars seldom lacked customers. Some were open all night. A late antique urban prefect tried in vain to prohibit the sale of wine before mid-morning. At any time of day, bars were places to gather, talk, and relax over a cup of wine. A comic strip-like fresco in Pompeii's Caupona of Salvius captures the atmosphere. 2 men throw dice and banter with a serving maid. Another pair, playing a game similar to backgammon, argue over the score. In the final panel, the squabbling players are thrown out by the bartender.
Huh.
Women who worked in bars were widely regarded as promiscuous. Some bars functioned as brothels. In an inscription set up by a pair of tavern keepers who jokingly called themselves Lucius Calidus Eroticus and Fania Voluptas, the services of a girl are tallied on a customer's bill alongside bread and wine.
Definitely saloon vibes.
To judge from the graffiti describing the bedroom prowess and prices of various barmaids in Pompeii, this sort of accounting was far from exceptional. Literary descriptions of Roman bars dwell on their seediness. Juvenal described a bar in Ostia as a place where thieves and fugitive slaves drank with eunuchs and undertakers.
Wow.
Centuries later, the historian Ammianus Marcellinus complained that Rome's lower classes spent half their lives in bars, gambling, arguing about charity.
Let them be, though. Let them be. They work, like, their life, like, in the feudalist system that they live in. There's no true ladder to become wealthy unless there's just fate or luck at that point. So, like, let them drink, let them eat, let them do whatever. They're before the Goths come, let them just do it.
Chariot races, and, for some reason, snorting. Some of the bars in Rome's rougher areas were genuinely dangerous. A praetor was murdered in one by his political enemies, and at least 2 future emperors, Nero and Lucius Verus, had their eyes blackened while slumming in Tabernae.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me, though. Not those people, but, like, I'm imagining alcohol, the clientele, the saloon vibes. They're definitely going to be rowdy people, and there's definitely going to be death.
Bars owed much of their bad reputation, however, to elite snobbery. To wealthy Romans, The brawling, boisterous bars of the commoners always seemed unsavory, immoral, and more than a little threatening. It was a criminal offense to bring the young son of a respectable gentleman into a bar. A series of emperors, convinced that tabernae were potential hotbeds of conspiracy and unrest, limited the foods they could serve or closed them altogether.
Of course, these are all from, I'm pretty sure these are the emperors right after Augustus. So, imperial emperors.
Ultimately, the bars of ancient Rome were nothing more or less than restaurants, meeting places, and refuges for the hundreds of thousands who had few other places to gather. As today, each bar was different, but many Romans would have found something familiar in the epitaph of a woman from Tivoli who had, the inscription claimed, drawn visitors from far and wide to the haven of her bar. My new
Wow, that it? That is it. I'd love to go to some of these sites one day. Obviously Pompeii, but there's plenty more that don't get enough love. What an interesting video though, to kind of like get an idea of what the life was like. I love videos like this. You know, we don't always have to watch videos of war. I love the other intricate parts of society and life and culture that was a part of these times between the battles. So like understanding like how people mingled in society within these ancient saloons is interesting and relatable, very relatable. You know, like there's so much that we could take from this and say this is human nature to create and socialize in this. Of course, Rome, whenever Rome, the height of Rome fell, that is when things kind of take a step back for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. But at this point of where society was, because of Rome's amazing ability to create an empire and create these pockets of society, it gave opportunity for things to flourish, and yeah, things like this to flourish. So well done video. Interesting stuff. If you have anything to add to it, please put down below. But yeah, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been another fun video of Toldinstone. Until next time, peace out. Bye bye.